can hear me and see me, please, if you could just type yes again, I would appreciate, so I know that I'm not talking into the empty screen here. Everybody can see me, everybody can hear me. If you just type a yes or a yes. Okay, great, great. Okay, I'm only getting yeses from Christine so far, but let's see how it goes. This will be recorded, so for whoever didn't make it on the call today, you will have this recording and you can share it with your friends. So this 1 hour today is actually about hypnoparenting. It's about being an emotionally intelligent parent. And maybe you read the headline when I send the invitations out, and I said, how are you hypnotizing your children? So before I start talking about that, let me tell you why I'm talking about this. Let me tell you what this is all about. So just a couple of words about myself. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mona Abderrahim Santel, as you can see here, and I work with hypnotherapy a lot. Now, as hypnotherapists, we see people who have problems. We see people who have behavioral habits that they want to stop, things that disturb them in their lives. And most of the time, these people who come to us are adults. Now, when we work with hypnotherapy and when we go back to see the source of the problem, most of the time, we go back to the age of between 0 and 6 years. Why? Because this is the age where a child does not have a conscious mind yet. This is the age group where a child is just absorbing everything that they learn. Every single experience is, the mind of the child is like a sponge. So everything that they experience, everything that they see, they're just absorbing and learning. So this is really important to know, because during that age, during that time, everything that we actually say to them is going straight into their subconscious mind, into that part of the mind that learns behaviors that will stay for life unless we replace them later. Yeah. Knowing that and knowing how much we affect children at that young age, I decided to develop that program about 2 years ago, specifically for parents. This is not hypnosis for parents. This is also not hypnosis for children. It is actually awareness of how you as parents are affecting your children every single day, how you are affecting your children by talking to them, and sometimes even not by talking to them with words, but just with the behavior, with body language that we know is so much more important than words themselves. So if we go back and see the sources of why we do this, well, as I said, we are affecting them from the day they are born. And actually, if I want to be honest, it's not the day they're born. We're starting to affect them also while they're in the womb. So we know nowadays how much even stresses that a mother incurs during her pregnancy. We know how, while we are pregnant, thoughts and beliefs and things that are happening around us are affecting the baby in the womb. We also know that the babies can hear in the womb already. Yeah, so from that very, very young age on, it is really important to know how we are communicating with our unborn child and then with our children. So when we hear about hypnoparenting, and let me tell you, a lot of people come to me, a lot of parents come to me, mothers, and say, you know what, my child doesn't listen, my daughter doesn't want to get dressed, my daughter doesn't want to do her homework, my son doesn't want to go to bed, etc., etc., etc. Oftentimes it's about the children. Oftentimes it's about fixing that child. Well, today, I must disappoint you, we're not fixing any children. It's about really being aware of how are we affecting them. Yeah, because let me tell you a story. So I had a woman come to me and say exactly what I just said. My daughter doesn't listen. My daughter doesn't want to get dressed. My daughter doesn't want to go to bed, etc. And every night I have these problems with her. Every night I have the fights, and I have to wait till my husband comes home so that he can deal with it, so that she finally goes to sleep. So my question to her was, so you mean to say when your husband comes home, then she does that? Well, yes. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that the child is totally capable of doing all these things. However, it is only reacting to you. So in this specific case, it was the daughter was reacting to the mother. The daughter is capable of brushing her teeth, of sleeping, of going to bed, of doing all these things. However, she subconsciously wanted her dad to be there. So that means I'm not doing it with mom because I want dad to come. Yeah. So this is just one thing to understand how the mind works. So when we look into the mind, um, with the example I just told you, consciously we do things, but subconsciously we do other things often. Yeah, a child will react subconsciously more because the subconscious mind is the mind of emotions and feelings. So if we consciously say, I want to change a behavior, oftentimes we cannot change it. Why? Because our subconscious mind is is stronger, has a stronger effect on what we want. And this is the mind that does some things habitually and automatically. So in this case, that automatic response of that girl was, you know what? I really want daddy to come home. I really want daddy to see daddy. So I will just not do what mommy wants because I want to see daddy. Um, the thing that we need to understand here is then, okay, how do I behave? What is my communication with my child? Yeah. So let me ask you this. How many times do we, or what do you actually do when your child is behaving, when your child is being the good girl or the bad or the good boy, when they're sitting, doing their homework, playing, just doing the things that they should do? Well, when I ask this question, many times I get the answer, oh, we finally can do the million things that we have to do. We finally can get to work. We finally can do the things that we actually don't have the time to do when the children are around. So if I, you could type at any time here. You are muted, but you can type at any time, and I will answer your questions here. So when this is these are the responses that I get most of the times. Now, if we know this, if we know that a child wants attention, and for a child, getting attention from the mother or from the father is one of the most important things for them. They grow up with parents. Um, Parents are unless you grow up with grandparents, then grandparents, of course, also. But parents are something to people that the child is always that the child trusts, and it's like the safe haven, right? So you always want that attention from these two people who you think love you most, you grow up with. And to get attention, the children will do anything. Yeah. So most of the time, and most parents will say, while the children are being good, are behaving, I can finally do things for myself. And on the other hand, as soon as that child or the children start fighting or the child starts doing something, we intervene. And that's where we give them the attention that they want. So knowing this, what does the child learn? what does the subconscious mind learn? I have to be bad. I have to do something that brings mommy or daddy to me. Well, I learned that about 25 years ago when my second son, the middle one, was around 2 years old. And I came into the bedroom one day and I saw him standing with scissors in his hand, cutting the curtains. And I turned to him and said, Luca, what are you doing? And with his 2 years, with his really naive and very, very honest 2 years, he looked at me and he said, Mommy, I wanted you to come. And that was a big, big aha moment for me. That was a big lesson for me. Yeah. Understanding that, yes, children will do anything when they know that their parents will react to them and will give them the attention they need. So here is tip number 1 for today. Give your children the attention when they are behaving, when they are being good, when they're sitting somewhere and just minding their own business. Go over to them, stroke them, give them some what we call strokes, like some acknowledgement. Tell your daughter, oh, that's so beautiful what you're doing here. Acknowledge the things that they are doing. Just give them the feeling that they are seen, and give them the feeling that you are acknowledging and liking what they're doing. On the other hand, and this is the more difficult part now, it is challenging and difficult just for maybe a few days. When they are not behaving or doing the things that you don't want them to do, as much as you can, ignore them. Ignore them. Well, of course, I'm not saying if your son is standing on the balcony and wants to jump down, don't ignore it, please. Then you do have to intervene or say something. However, when they're pushing your buttons, when they're shouting, when they're getting a little bit louder, or if you have 2 or 3 children when they're starting to fight over something, let them do their thing. Don't react. Look away. As much as you can, ignore them. And usually parents will come back after 1 week only and say to me, wow, that was so fast. So going back to my story of that lady with the daughter, I gave her exactly these tips. We spoke about the father not coming home and going to the daughter in that moment, but the father actually on the weekends or when he was home, spending time with the daughter more, however, not intervening and not coming home, not interfering in that process of going to bed at night. And just by doing these couple of tips after 1 week only, that woman came back and said, wow, that's such a difference. Now, why I say 1 week? So for those of you watching now, I will at the end of this hour, I will give you a link to where you can register for my course. The way I usually do this is I do a 4-week course. 4 weeks means 4 times, and I see the parents either in person here or online for 3 hours approximately every time. During these 3 hours, you will get a lot of information, a lot of tips, and a lot of exercises to do. And then, of course, these activities, these exercises, you take them with you and you practice them for about a week. Because it is not easy. We also have habits. We are humans. We have habits that we have been maybe doing for years and years and years, things that maybe we learned also from our parents. So it is not easy to just boom, switch and change overnight. However, when you have a week where you just focus on one homework or two a week, then you come back, and in the second week we'll talk about the experiences, and then we'll go on to the next topic. You'll get your homework again, and so on and so forth, and this goes on for 4 weeks. I'll talk about that at the end of the course again. But this is just to explain to you that, yes, we need, in order to change habits, we need to practice. Yeah. So what is a habit? Let's talk about habits just a little bit. Habits are not only smoking or eating or biting nails or doing things that we don't want to do. A habit is also, we often have emotional habits. So if we have a fear, that's a habit. Let me explain it to you from a hypnosis perspective. So what happens if, let's say, I see a dog at the age of 1 year or 6 months, and I have no idea what that dog is. But let's say that in this moment, my mom will pick me up and do this. Well, the thing is that I don't know what the dog is, and I don't have that conscious understanding of analyzing that dog. However, I feel. And I learned that this creature, whatever that is, means, just beware. And the more I do that, the more it will become a habit. And this turns into a fear later on. And this can even develop into a phobia if we keep going and going. Because everything that we repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat, we get better and better at. Isn't that the way we learn? And when we get better and better at it, becomes just an automatic and an unconscious response. Yeah. So think about everything that you do. When we think about driving a car, we learn it consciously. Every language we learn consciously, and then it becomes more and more habitual. And nowadays, when we drive a car, we don't even think about driving anymore. We do a million other things while we drive. Things that we shouldn't do, but we do them. So it becomes automatic, and it becomes that automatic response. So like driving a car, like learning a language, like having that fear where we become better and better and better at, and we become masters in being fearful. We, sorry, we also have habits like, for example, ridiculing someone. We have other habits like, for example, being anxious. So we have habits of how we speak to each other, habits of how we speak to our children, feelings, for example, habits of wanting to be the best. Perfectionism is a habit that a lot of parents have. Now, in some countries that I work in, maybe it's a little bit more than in others, but that habit of always wanting to be to have someone who's perfect, a daughter, a son who's perfect, this will make us do things and say things that might affect our children in a negative way. So let's talk about that just for a moment. If I have that habit, and I'll call it habit for now, that, my child has to be really good because I want to, in front of my friends, say, you know what, my child is the #1 in school. What happens is that I start behaving that way. So I start talking to my child in a way of saying, for example, why did your friend have a better grade than you? Or I say, look at your brother, he's doing so well, why can't you do the same? So we start often comparing children. Yeah. From a perspective, from a point of view of the subconscious mind, when I say to a child, look at the other child, he's doing better than you, I am actually telling that child, the way you are is not good enough. When I say the way you are is not good enough, I'm telling that child, you're not okay the way you are. Yeah. And this will let that child doubt, we are actually decreasing the level of confidence, the level of self-esteem. And over the years, if this becomes a habit, that child will always be a little bit less confident and think that he's not good enough. Yeah, that feeling of not being good enough. Do you have any idea how many people
بحاول
actually have?
شو أنا
Whoops, I need to mute everybody. Yeah, so a lot of people do have that feeling, I'm not good enough. And why? Oftentimes it stems from this time. It stems from the very, very, very early ages on. So everything we say to our children in this young age, everything we say, I say sticks. Okay, so going back to understanding a little bit, why does it stick? Why do we learn these things more when we are children than when we are adults? Well, we do learn also when we are adults. However, how does the subconscious mind actually work? Our conscious mind is our analytical mind. It's the mind that understands and has a logical function. So consciously, I can say, wait a minute, what you just said doesn't make any sense. So I reject that phrase, that suggestion. However, the subconscious mind doesn't have any logic. The subconscious mind is the mind of imagination, the mind of feelings and emotions. And the more we feel, the more we are emotional, the higher the emotions are, the stronger the emotions are, the less our analytical functions are working. I like to say, when we think, we don't feel. When we feel, we don't think. So, the more we are, for example, in a state of shock or fear, the less we can think rationally. Yeah. But not only for negative emotions. Think about, have you ever been madly in love? Well, do we actually think when we are? Probably not. So thinking and feeling are two different mindsets. Yeah. So the higher our emotions, the more we are in that state of imagination that the subconscious mind is, the less that guard is there saying, wait a minute, I don't want that suggestion. I'm not accepting that. Yeah. So whatever we hear or see is going straight into the subconscious mind because that guard is off. Does that make sense? So when talking to children, and when we know that children from the age of 0 to 6 approximately don't have that conscious mind yet, yeah, we then understand that everything that happens during that time is actually going straight into their subconscious mind and being absorbed by it. Yeah. So think about a child. I just said to you, the more we imagine, the less we can actually rationalize, right? So think about a child now. A child is in that state all the time. Think about children when they're playing. For those of you who have daughters, have you ever seen your daughter or another small girl play princess? Isn't she the princess in that moment? I mean, she is like, she believes it and 100%. Or if you have a son, it would be, I don't know, playing Superman. Well, in that moment, he definitely and 100% believes that he is Superman. So when children play, they are imagining, they are pretending they're something, but their imagination is so powerful that they are actually acting upon it. Yeah. And in that moment, if we say something, that will go straight into the subconscious mind and will be absorbed as a lesson. Yeah, I hope this all makes sense. I'm trying to put together all the information that we have as hypnotists, information from from the mind perspective. How does the mind work and how does the mind learn? And then we will see how to translate it into the work with children. So yes, so that child will absorb everything the more emotional they are. So now a question. What do you do if your child comes home and he maybe fell down and scratched his knee? We probably all know this example of a child coming and saying, "Mommy, Mommy, I hurt my knee." And we look at the knee and then we have several options. How do we react? Option A is, "Oh my God, this looks terrible. Let's go to the hospital right away. Does it hurt? Honey, does it hurt?" Okay, so by me doing this, what am I doing? I am reinforcing the does it hurt? I'm reinforcing the pain, and I'm reinforcing that this is actually something bad that happened. So, and we all know that in this moment, a child will probably cry even more. Now I have option B. Option B would be, looking and saying, "Oh, you know what? This is nothing. Then mommy blow on it and I'll give you a little kiss and mwah, and everything is fine now." Yeah, just rub that knee and whoops, everything is okay. Yeah, and we all know what happens to children in that case. Children will just smile and everything is good. There are so many YouTube videos about exactly that on YouTube, obviously, that you can watch, and I'm sure for those of you who have children, you have experienced that. So we know how we're affecting our child in that moment. Now, option 3 would be, "I told you not to jump on there. Why didn't you listen?" That's what you get when you don't listen to mommy. Yeah. So a blame, basically infiltrating that a little bit of guilt in that child, or, well, blaming him for having fallen down. This is another thing that I want to talk about. When we do this, what are we actually doing? And let's understand it from the perspective of the mind. The child already has a problem. Now, the problem is, I fell down and I hurt my knee. Let's take another example. The child comes home from school and says, "Mommy, nobody played with me today and I was all alone." The child has already a problem. Now, if I say, "Why did you jump on there?" Or in the other case, if I say, "Next time, go and talk to the teacher." Or, "Why didn't you just tell them that you wanted to play with them? You should get the principal and be stronger. You can't be as weak as this when you go to school." So all of these sentences are saying what to the child? We are creating a second problem for that child. So as I said before, the child already has a problem. That problem is, I fell down or nobody plays with me. And now, in that moment, I'm creating a second problem. That the problem is, you don't know how to deal with these situations. I am reinforcing that he doesn't know what to do and that he needs someone to help him. This is very powerful. This is really important to understand, and this is actually my tip number 2 for today. This is something that I've been talking about a lot in schools. Developing that sense of confidence in children, developing also the self-esteem self-esteem, but also that sense of relying on yourself, and knowing what to do. Because if I tell that child, "You don't know what to do," that means you're not good enough, that means you're not okay, I am diminishing of his personality. So How do we react in these cases? What do I do if a child comes home and says, Mommy, nobody played with me today? Yeah. So instead of saying, you know, why didn't you do this, or you have to do this, or next time do that, instead of giving him advice, talking to him, what can we do? Well, first of all, the best thing is to actually really listen to that child. Listen to that child and understand that child. Yeah. So, number one is just practicing more empathy. Empathy is a big, big part of being an emotionally intelligent parent. Empathy means listening to the child in order to understand that child. Empathy is listening not only with your ears, but also with your eyes and with your heart. That means when the child comes home, I'm not doing the dishes or on my computer or on my phone and just listening. I am actually stopping and looking at him and giving him these minutes or whatever time he needs to really understand him, put myself in his shoes, and not see things from my point of view, not see things as an adult. The second thing is, what we often do is we ask them too many times, what happened? Tell me again exactly what happened. Well, the thing is, the child already knows what happened. Every time, and this is now something, please note this down, every time we repeat a story, we are creating a new memory in our minds. I'll repeat that. Every time you repeat a story, you're creating a new memory for your subconscious mind. I'll explain this in a while, but let me just continue here. Okay, so instead of asking to repeat over and over again, and then what happens often is, you know, a couple of hours later, the dad comes home and we say, here, tell daddy what happened. Yeah, or the grandparents come or the neighbors, and we repeat that. You know what happened to him today at school? You know what happened? You know, you want to tell them, or shall I tell them? And we talk about it over and over again. So we are reinforcing, first of all, the negative story that happened, and secondly, we're reinforcing that, you know what, he actually didn't know how to react to that. His behavior was not appropriate. Okay, so what do we do? Instead of asking him to repeat that story, we will ask him, how would you like to react next time? What would be the better way of reacting? What do you want to do if this happens again tomorrow or next week? By doing this, I'm actually doing two things. First of all, I am enhancing his problem-solving skills. I am letting that child be more independent, responsible, think about solutions. Yeah. Many, many times we want to offer the child solutions instead of letting him come up with a solution that works for him. Yeah. So the first thing that I'm doing by doing that is I am actually reinforcing that or enhancing these capabilities that he has. I'm developing these capabilities, not enhancing them. I'm developing them from a small age on. Yeah. And the second thing I'm doing is I am letting that child imagine the future, because if I say, what would you like to do tomorrow or next time? Then he is imagining himself and seeing himself actually do whatever he wants to do. And if you remember a couple of minutes ago, I told you the subconscious mind is the world of imagination. And the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. So if I'm imagining myself doing something, I will feel great. I will feel proud. I will feel confident. I will feel whatever feelings I have during that imagination. Remember that boy playing Superman, that girl playing princess? When we imagine we are something, we can feel it. Yeah. And the more we feel that, the more it can become a habit. Yeah. So we are developing a sense of we're developing a habit of feeling good. We're developing a habit of knowing what we can do, of developing our skills of finding solutions on our own. Now, let me tell you something. The thing is, we as parents often want to give solutions to our children, and it's understandable, right? We say we don't want them to go through misery. We don't want them to experience traumatic experiences. We know because we've experienced it ourselves. Well, here is where that thought process is not quite right anymore. I don't know your ages. I have 3 children. I have absolutely, and I have my own experiences as a child, I have my own experiences as a mother. But let me tell you this, I have absolutely no idea how it is to be a child today. Regardless of your age, even if you're a very, very young mother, even if you're in your early 20s, you have absolutely no idea how it is to be a child today. So oftentimes we compare our childhood to today. We say, well, I know how it is to be a girl. I know how it is to be bullied. I know how this and that and the other is. No, we don't. We know how it was to be a child at our time, in our time, not today. Yeah. So when we say listen empathically, when we say use empathy to actually understand your child, I mean understand it from his perspective, understand it from the world that we live in today. Most of us did not grow up with, just taking a very easy example, social media and everything that belongs to that today. We did not grow up like this, so we don't know the pressures, and we also don't know the advantages. We see it as parents from a different angle. We see it maybe being scared that they don't reach as many people anymore physically. I mean, reaching, by reaching, I mean playing with or being in contact with people physically. We don't know how it is to go to a school today and learn things that we didn't learn at our time in our time. Yeah. So this is really important to understand. We need to look at it from their perspective, not from our angle. Yeah. So again, going back to that child that will say, something happened in school, and and instead of saying, instead of saying, why didn't you do, just ask them, what would you like to do? Yeah. Our mind does not know the difference between imagination and reality. Yeah. So if you repeat a story over and over again, for your mind, it is happening right now over and over again. Think about people who are living in the future or people who live in the past. Why are some people very negative? Why do people have anxieties? Well, let's start with the future. Let's start with fears or anxieties. Well, my definition of an anxiety is that's a memory of the future that hasn't happened yet. Let me explain that. Why do I say it's a memory of the future? Well, because as soon as I imagine it, it becomes my reality. As soon as I imagine it, I feel the effects of it right now. And as soon as I imagine it, that image will stay in my mind as a memory. Did it happen? Did it not happen? I don't know. But it is a memory that I just created in my mind. Yeah. Think about it. If you now, go back and think about any memory of the past, and if you close your eyes for a moment and think about anything that happened, see the things that were around you and hear the words that were said and feel the feelings that you felt. Just do it for a moment. You'll notice that you might even have physical reactions. Many people, if they think about experiences that were not so nice, they will have increased heart rate, they will maybe have sweaty palms, or heavy breathing. Something will show physically even. On the other hand, if I said to you now, go back to a wonderful memory, a memory of whatever vacation, a moment in your life where you felt so happy. And again, close your eyes and feel that moment and hear the things that happened and the words that were said. If you do that, you'll probably feel, oh yeah, I feel relaxed. I feel calm. Yeah. And although you did not go neither to that situation nor to the other one, you still have physical reactions right now. Yeah. So the past will affect you right now. And that future, like I said, an anxiety, that memory of the future will also affect you right now. Yeah. So one very important thing is also to practice what we call nowadays mindfulness or being in the now or whatever, and actually not taking a situation of our past and projecting it onto our children, but really being here and now, not living the past and not living the future. Many parents, when we look at our children, we remember how it was for us and we project it on our children. Or on the other hand, we look into what do I want my child to be? What future do I see for my child? And again, I project it onto that child. Yeah. So knowing that and knowing how important it is to really be in the now and stay here, avoid talking about your own experiences with a child. Yeah. And when you project to the future, avoid telling that child, you know what, if you jump there again, you know what, you will fall. Because telling the child you will fall is actually like a suggestion to him that he will fall. So instead of saying you will fall, instead of telling the child what will happen, ask them. Ask them in order to develop their own sense of self-reliance, their own sense of creativity, and also their self-esteem that this was my idea, I came up with it. I do a lot of these talks, just the way I'm doing it right now with you here. I do a lot of these talks in schools. Many schools and nurseries. Now, one of the main concerns that nurseries have nowadays, at least here in in this region, they are asking me to talk about responsibility more, because they say teachers are not able to teach these small children of, let's say, 2, 3, and 4 years old. They are not able to teach them what they're supposed to teach them, because they're spending their time helping them get dressed, helping them take their shoes or their socks off, feeding them, etc., etc., etc. So all of these things that a child should be able to do at that age, all of these things that children should be learning to do slowly, and or maybe at that age even know how to do already. But why is that? Why do children nowadays not do things on their own? Well, a lot of it is because what do we do as parents? We want things to be fast. We want things to be done the way we want them to be done, our way, because we think, that's the right way to do it. So a lot of times when we watch, and watch parents, they start saying something to their child, and then their child is a bit slow doing it. And what do? They interfere and they say, come on, I'll do it for you, it's faster. A child will only learn by doing. We all learn by doing. A child will only learn if he falls, if he makes mistakes. And like I said before, don't let a child go on the balcony and jump down. That mistake is not the one we want them to learn. But if it's a small, a stool or something they're standing on, let them fall. Yeah, let them make their own, get their own experiences. Yeah. So they develop that sense of I'm doing it myself, and that reliance, self-reliance. What we do with that also is we will encourage them to find solutions for themselves and not rely on others. Yeah. And this is what a lot of parents now, on the other hand, so the nurseries and the schools complain that, the children are not able to do things alone. The parents, on the other hand, complain a lot of times that our children are bored, we have to find new things for them to do, and they overwhelm them with activities. Yeah. So again, as a father, as a mother, allow your child to come up with his own ideas. Allow a child to make his own experiences, and allow time. Allow time. We are living in a time that is very fast-paced. Yeah. However, we all need that time for us to develop slowly, some slower and some faster. But let them try and try until they make it. Yeah. And just for a moment, think of that child, and maybe put yourself back into that age when you were about a year old. And think about that moment where you really wanted to get up and walk. And you pulled yourself up to stand, and boom, you fell, right? But then again, you tried again, and you pulled and pulled and pulled, and boom, you fell again. And how many times did we fall before walking? But then put yourself in that moment where I actually stood up and I let go of whatever I was holding on to, and I walked for the very first time in my life. Yeah. Just remember or imagine that moment in your life. How good did that feel? Yeah. How proud were you in that moment of really, doing something? Yeah. So Mira, you're saying totally agree. That's the old school method. Exactly. Yeah. But now letting them develop new ideas. The old school method, like you're saying, Mira, is really learning by heart, is learning because this is the way to do it. Yeah. But if we let that child really do whatever is in his capabilities, and maybe, one does it at a year, the other does it at 2 years, it doesn't really matter. But then if you remember that moment, that pride, that feeling of yes, accomplishment, that feeling of I did it, this will motivate you to do more. This will push you to explore more and to develop new ideas. Yeah. So going back, instead of telling the child what to do or what it should have done, rather ask that child, you know what, if this happens again, what would you like to do in the future? Yeah. And like I said before, and I want to repeat that just because it is so important, just by doing that, we're doing two things. We are allowing that development of problem solving that is so important nowadays, even at work, coming up with ideas. And on the other hand, we're not reinforcing the memory of what happened. Yeah. And when I say this, I don't mean, and I'm not saying ignore what happened. I'm not saying if something bad happens, ignore it. Talk about it, but talk about it by finding also a solution for the future, by letting the child develop the solution for the future. And you know what? You can even do it at 1 year, at 2 years. As soon as the child is able to communicate with you in his own way, you can start doing it. Yeah. The earlier you do it, the more it will become a habit for that child to find solutions. Yeah. Um, if we go to the animal world, we can see animals where just, a giraffe is born and the mother just leaves the giraffe there to stand and get up on its own feet, it pushes, and we're there. We're in the background, we're there, and we're supportive, but we're not doing the things for them. Yeah. So this was tip number 2, which is really a very important thing. Now, again, looking at it from the perspective of a child, if we always tell a child what to do, we are telling them what was good in our time. A big part of the program, and like I said to you before, this course is taught in over 4 weeks, and every single week it's about 3 hours. Where I give you activities, I'll give you some games. We do a lot of games. And then you have that homework to take home with you and to practice the things that we have done during the course. And after 1 week, usually there is this group discussion going on. Okay, how did this work? How did that work? Now, what we start with, and this is something, I mean, most of you are probably aware of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is something that, even in corporations nowadays is becoming more and more important. So if we wanted to take emotional intelligence into parenting, emotional intelligence has four big parts. The one part is being self-aware. The other part is managing yourself. Third part is being aware of others. And the fourth part is that relationship management. Yeah. So if we want to take these 4 quadrants, these 4 parts into parenting, the first and most important part is being aware of yourself. So I do like to spend a lot of time usually on that topic. It's not the time now and today here, but there are a lot of exercises that I can give you. I want to give you one exercise today only to do, and I call it the Be Your Child exercise. So become aware of how you actually talk. Become aware of how you behave. Remember earlier when I was telling you sometimes when the child comes home and wants to talk to you, are you on your phone? Are you on the computer? Are you doing some work at home? How are you actually behaving when you listen to your child? So become aware of your way of talking, the words that you use. Become aware of your body language with your child. To do this, you can do the following, which you can, do every night before you go to sleep or in the morning, whenever. Just close your eyes for a moment and just imagine for a moment that you are your son or your daughter. Yeah? And then just go through your day through their eyes, through their ears. See what they're seeing at home. Yeah, go through the day. Let's say in the morning, they're in bed. What do they hear when you actually want to get them out of bed to go to school? What do they see? What do they see when they get up? How's the environment? How's the family situation? How much shouting are they hearing? How much encouragement are they hearing? How much blame are they hearing? Yeah. So go through your child's ears, go through your child's eyes to become aware of yourself, actually. Yeah. Very, very nice exercise that we all can do. And by the way, all of the things that I just mentioned today, it's a lot about relationships. It's a lot about communication. If you don't have a child in that age now, you can use exactly these things with your partner. It's really about understanding others. It's about becoming aware of how you react. Yeah. So do this exercise, whether it's with your children or even with team members or colleagues at work. Yeah. Just put yourself in their shoes. What are they hearing? How are you behaving? How are you talking? Yeah. I have a question here. Is it okay to ask them? My kids are 7 and 8. I often think about how about asking me how do they feel about specific situations or people. It is, of course, if they're 7 and 8, and you can, of course, ask them, talk to them, ask them for their opinion. How do they see you? Of course, and if they will tell you, that's a really, really good communication that you already have. Yeah. Maybe they will say something, maybe they see it in another way. Ask several. If you have many children, if you have 2 children, ask both, and you know what, they might see it differently again. Yeah. And if your children are not capable of communicating that or of expressing exactly that, you know, just do it for yourself. That exercise that I just told you, very, very powerful exercise. Only when we get to know ourselves, only when we become aware of ourselves, can we then move on to managing ourselves, to managing how we actually talk, etc. And then the other part is understanding your children. Today, I will not go so much into that. Thank you, Mira, for you. I will not go too much into that today. I will have another webinar for that, or you can, you know, of course, join the course where you'll have a lot more of the exercises, etc. I am going to post, oops, I lost it here. I am going to post the page where you can sign up. The page, I have the wrong thing here. Okay, while I'm talking. So the page to sign up is on my website. It's mindyourpower.org/public-courses-and-talks/hypno-parenting/hypno-parenting-online-course. I know this was way too much and too long. I will post it with the replay of this webinar for all of you who are interested, and please share this with others. Now, one more word to that emotional intelligence, how important it is to be aware of yourself, and also how important is it to be aware of your children. Children are different. Children have different ways that they perceive things. Children have different personalities. When we want to speak to our child, we need to understand their personalities. Yeah. So just a few words about how are we, how do we need to talk to them? Okay, now I got that. How do we need to talk to them? We need to understand, is my child someone who needs time? Is my child someone who speaks in a slow way? Then I need to talk to him a little bit slower. So there are children who process differently. They process in a way of feeling more, not in a very visual way. These children need a little bit more time. Yeah. So if you are someone who's very visual, someone who's very goal oriented, someone who just goes straight for your goals and wants to do everything fast. Yeah. If you tell your child, come on, let's go, be ready in 15 minutes, we're leaving. And if you have a child who is that other personality, who needs to plan, who needs to understand things, then they are overwhelmed. Yeah. And what happens if I come back 15 minutes later and I say, come on, you're not ready yet, everybody's waiting for you, you're the only one we're waiting for? What happens in that moment? In that moment, I'm telling that child, you're not good as the others, just the way that what I said to you earlier. I am telling that child, you are not good as the others. Yeah. So again, think about, what are you actually telling your child when you're saying these things? What am I telling my child when I'm saying, I'm always waiting for you, you're always the last one? From a mind point of view, from the subconscious mind, I'm telling that child, everyone else is faster than you, everyone else is better than you, you're not okay. Yeah. So again, in order to develop the confidence of the child, in order to develop their sense of self-reliance, and also finding solutions, let them be themselves. Let them be okay, and tell them that they are okay the way they are. Understand that not your way is the only way. Understand that you as a parent know a lot, but you don't know how to be your child, even though you're the mother. So this will conclude today's webinar. I have put on the screen the registration code, the page where you go to, just click on that link and you will be straight on the page where you can actually register for that webinar. The next dates for this webinar is the 1st, 8th, 15th, and 22nd of June. This one will be a live one. I do have recorded webinars. This one will be a live one, which is, again, the dates are the 1st, the 8th, the 15th, and the 22nd of June. These are Saturdays. It will be the same timing. The start is the same timing as today's meeting. So Dubai time 9:30, Lebanon time 8:30, Germany time 7:30, and etc. etc. If you know anyone who will benefit from it, please share the link. I will have this recording online on YouTube, on my channel on YouTube, which is YouTube/Mind Your Power. I will also have this online on my Facebook page, which is Facebook Mind Your Power. I will also have it on my website, which is mindyourpower.org. And please feel free to, send me messages, send me any questions you have. I will answer them. I really appreciate you being here today. These were 2 big tips. And again, just for you to remember, tip number 1, how do you give attention? Give attention in the moments where they're actually doing something good. Yeah, reinforce that behavior. Ignore as much as you can the being not good. And big tip number 2, when they have a problem, don't reinforce that problem. Don't create a second problem for them. Instead, ask them, how would you like to? What would you like to do next time? Develop their sense of self-reliance, self-esteem. Thank you very much, all of you, for watching today. I will end this meeting now.